Tonight we are conducting the International Speech Contest and table topics. The winner of the International Speech Contest will compete in the division contest in approximately about 6 weeks from now, April 19th. Then there is the district contest on May 3rd. And the winner of the district contest goes all the way to the international contest in August. The table topics contestants, the competition continues until the district level. We're going to begin tonight with the speech contest. And I will ask the timer to explain the timing rules for the contest. But the speakers and participants agree. Yes. Very good. We have 3 speakers tonight. The speaking area will be from about here all the way to here, and maybe say about a couple of feet from the front row, because we don't want you falling on top of it. The speaking order is first Eric Williamson, second is Donna Sasser, and third is Joe Finn. At this time, I'd like to welcome Eric Williamson. Eric Williamson, you only live once. You only live once. Eric Williamson.
T. Harv Eker once stated that nobody ever died of discomfort, yet living in the name of comfort is killing more actions, more ideas, more opportunity, and more growth than everything combined. You see, comfort kills. You know, I grew up with a friend who became a victim of comfort, and as a result, he never pursued his passions. He never tapped into his full potential, and he never explored the world outside of his own neighborhood. And then sadly, life slipped through his fingers. Now, as I looked at him, I said to myself that it wasn't gonna be me. And he made my decision that much easier to not only want to learn to speak Spanish, but to take it a step further and immerse myself in the culture. Fellow contest master, Toastmaster members, welcome guests, and anybody else who's been a victim to comfort. These are the reasons why I decided to move to Costa Rica and live with a Costa Rican family for 18 months when I was 19 years old. You know, I can remember when my Costa Rican family picked me up from the airport and took me back to the house. Reality set in. Fears and doubts crept up my shoulders and into my mind. My stomach was so tight, and my palms were just so sweaty. I couldn't even breathe. It felt like my chest was beating 100 miles an hour. You see, I realized something. I realized that I committed to something that I wasn't fully prepared for. And there was no turning back. I couldn't speak Spanish. Not one word. Well, I'm exaggerating just a little bit. I knew how to say, hola, ¿cómo está? But I already said that when I met my Costa Rican family at the airport, so I was out of words. Needless to say, the ride home back to the house was filled with an awkward silence. Matter of fact, you know that awkward silence you experience when you're in an elevator with somebody that you don't know? Well, this was 100 times worse than that. and it took 30 minutes to get back to the house. I couldn't wait for that day to end. But you know what? Despite how I was feeling at that moment, part of me felt a little bit more optimistic about the next day, because that was the day that I was going to report to school for the very first time. And I thought to myself that maybe, just maybe, I'll learn enough Spanish that I can communicate with my Costa Rican family and anybody else. Perhaps it was wishful thinking, but I had to pray on something. So as that next day approached, I confidently walked out the house, and my Costa Rican mother, she looked at me with the warmest smile, and she said to me, "Adios, que le vaya bien, Dios la acompaña." Now, I didn't know what she said. I didn't realize that she was wishing me well on my journey to school and for God to be with me on my journey. So I just responded back, "Adios." That's one more word I knew. So as I'm walking to school, ever so confidently, the inevitable happens. I got lost! I got lost on my way to school. I was lost in a foreign country. I didn't just panic, I freaked out. I walked frantically up and down the streets. I couldn't recognize any of the names of the street signs. I couldn't read any of the names of the schools and the businesses that I passed. And the further I walked, the more lost I felt. But I had to do something. And what should have been my first instinct happened to have been my last thought. Find some help. Anybody, reach out. So I stopped walking frantically. And I looked over to my right. And I saw a guard who was standing outside of a bank. And he was holding this massive shotgun in his hands. Now, I already told you how scared I was. But I was more scared to approach this guard than I was being lost. Not just because I couldn't speak Spanish, but because he was holding this huge shotgun in his hands. But I had no choice. I had to ask for help. So I carefully approached the guard. And in my best and most creative Spanish, I uttered the words, "Yo no soy, ¿dónde está?" That was the most amount of words in Spanish I ever spoken in my life. Even more than "Hola, ¿cómo está?" Except this time, I made no sense at all. And the guard, he stood there with this enormous shotgun, and he looked at me as if I was crazy. Then he clutched his weapon tighter. I reacted. I realized that I had to ease the situation before it started escalating. Then I remembered something. I remembered this one word I learned on the plane ride to Costa Rica. Ayúdame. So I regrouped, and I approached him again, a little bit more confidently. And I said, "Ayúdame, ayúdame." And I pointed to the address of my school, hoping that he'd draw the connection. And it worked. He understood I was lost, but not only did he understand I was lost, he actually got someone to escort me to school. Now, that entire 18-month Costa Rican experience has made me fearless of the unknown and more confident in my abilities. It's given me the courage to pursue my own passions, such as starting my own consulting firm, Tailored Training Solutions. It's given me the courage to stand up here and share this story with you. Because let's face it, if I can move to a foreign country without learning any Spanish and come out of that whole experience alive and speaking Spanish, I can do anything. You can do anything if you step outside your comfort zone. Go on and step outside your comfort zone. Break free of your fears and doubts and comforts. Step outside your comfort zone. Remove your pockets full of what ifs. Step outside your comfort zone, whether it's a career you want to pursue, a place you want to travel to, a hairstyle you want to try out. Go on and step outside your comfort zone. Because you know why, as humans, we are afraid. We are inherently afraid. We're afraid of what people may think of us. We're afraid of the unknown. We're afraid of change. And we're afraid to step outside of our comfort zone. But sometimes you have to break free of your comforts and sense of securities to tap into your full potential and find out what makes you unique. So join me and stare fear in the eyes and overcome it with your inner courage. Remove your pockets full of what ifs and replace it with action. And when you do step outside your comfort zone, remember the words of my Costa Rican mother. Que le vaya bien y Dios la acompañe.
Let's welcome our second contestant, Donna Sasser.
Oh, Charles, 1 minute.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's have 1 minute for the judges to ask. Donna Sasser, listen as you've never listened before. Listen as you've never listened before. Donna Sasser.
Listen as you've never listened before. Mr. Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests. How many times has your partner said, "Haven't you heard a word I said?" Or when you were growing up, a parent would yell at you, "How many times do I have to tell you that?" Well, tonight I'm going to talk about listening. And if you tune in carefully, you might hone your own listening skills, improve your overall communication skills, and maybe improve your interpersonal relationships. We've all heard the old adage, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we would do more listening than speaking. And most of us do listen more than we speak. But do we really hear what's being said? Psychologists and social scientists have done any number of studies on the art and skill of listening. One of my favorites is called 18 Words. In it, the experimenter reads a list of 18 related words to the subjects. And in the course of this, he would repeat one word 3 times and leave out one obvious word. For instance, if the word list was items that you would find in the kitchen, you might leave out refrigerator or stove. Then the subjects are given 1 minute to write down as many words as they can. And the results are fairly consistent. 60% of the people remember the first word, 75% remember the last word, and 80% remember the word that was repeated 3 times. Surprisingly, 20% of the people remember a word that wasn't even there. And you can do this experiment with somebody you know. Maybe someone who thinks they're a good listener but really isn't, like your teenage son. Anyway, I did this with my division not too long ago, and our results were fairly consistent too. And this also kind of bears out the old Toastmaster axiom. Tell the people what you're going to tell them, then say it, then tell them what you told them, because people remember what you say first and last and what you repeat. Now, in order to become better listeners, one of the things that we can do is to identify our barriers or blocks to good listening. And I'm just going to mention 4 of them tonight. There are lots more. But anyway, number 1, daydreaming, rehearsing, filtering, and distractions. Daydreaming, we're all familiar with. We've done it at one time or another. Rehearsing is when you're thinking about what you're going to say while the other person is still speaking. So then you don't hear everything they said. Filtering is either consciously or subconsciously tuning out some or all of what the person is saying because either you don't like the message or maybe you don't like the person or how the person looks. But anyway, the bottom line is that you would tune out some of it. And distractions are a biggie in this day and age. We have internal distractions. What am I going to cook for dinner tonight? We have external distractions, all the electronics we have. And these can keep us from listening carefully. Now, we can overcome these listening blocks or barriers, and it's really fairly easy, but it takes practice. And I'll just mention a couple of ways that you can do that. Number 1 is to focus. Focus on the speaker and the message. And when you focus on the speaker, look at not only the words, but the gestures, the facial expressions, the tone, the emotion. That'll help you listen better. You can paraphrase what the speaker has said and that is saying back to the speaker what you thought he said so that you can clarify any miscommunication. You can also ask clarifying questions, and this is really good if the speaker uses a lot of jargon or acronyms, or maybe is talking about a very complex subject. Ask clarifying questions so that you can make sure you understand it. And lastly, you can suspend judgment. That means keep an open mind so you don't filter out anything that the speaker says. Now, in a nutshell, I've mentioned 2 ways that you can become a better listener. You can identify your own barriers or blocks to good listening, and you can practice active listening skills. Now, to identify your blocks to active listening, you can just ask yourself these questions. Do I daydream? Am I rehearsing? Am I filtering something out? Am I sidetracked by distractions? Then once you've identified these barriers, you can practice the active listening skills that I've mentioned. You can focus on both the speaker and the message. You can paraphrase. You can ask clarifying questions, and you can keep an open mind. If you try these things, you will indeed listen as you've never listened before.
Joe Finn, Julie's house. Julie's house, Joe Finn.
I climbed the hill to Julie's house, the place I used to live. I climbed the steps and tried the door, let myself in. Mr. Contest Chair, my fellow Toastmasters, and our distinguished guests, is change easy or difficult? Am I aware of how my actions influence other people? Change isn't easy. Self-improvement is challenging, but the rewards of changing and becoming better people last a lifetime. Tonight we'll do 2 things. We'll examine a wonderful piece of music by Leo Kottke called Julie's House. And secondly, we'll ask, what difference can its lyrics make in your life and in mine? Julie's House. Let's take a look at all the information we have in just 1 verse. Our hero is on a journey, and we know where he's going. To
Julie's house.
That's right, Julie's house. But we also know that he used to live there. Why doesn't he live there now? And secondly, we know that this journey is going to be a challenge. He climbed the hill to Julie's house. He climbed the steps. Was someone there waiting with open arms to greet him? No, he had to let himself in. This journey is going to be a challenge. The second verse has a theme. See if you can spot it. The kitchen clock I used to watch had stopped at 5 to 5. A photograph I'd never seen. A car came up the drive. Catch it? That's right, it's time. The kitchen clock, those keep time. He used to watch. In the past, had stopped at 5 to 5. Is there anything else in our hero's life that has also stopped? A photograph, that's a snapshot of a moment in time, but one he's never seen. It's more recent. If that second verse was curious, this third one is downright strange. I stood outside the kitchen door, and when she turned her head, I said that I was back to stay. She laughed at what I'd said. My friends, what in the wide, wide world of sports is going on in this song? We're conditioned to expect a cheerful and happy ending. He says he's back to stay, and she laughs at him. In the fourth verse, she speaks, and we begin to understand. She said that I'd grow old believing that I was what mattered most, that I'd uncover real feelings when I got close. Now we begin to see. He's a self-centered guy, and she's had enough. Did he ask her if it's a good idea if they get back together? Did he get down on bended knee with a bouquet of flowers and beg forgiveness? No! He only sees his own needs. She laughs because he doesn't see that she's already moved on with her life. She has new photos on the wall while he lives in the past. An interesting piece of music. Fair enough. But what does this have to do with you and with me? The answer, absolutely nothing! Unless you and I are willing to ask a very challenging question. In your life, in mine, where is Julie's house? Where do you and I have blinders on and we don't see the needs of another? Am I aware of what people are thinking and feeling, those people around me? Do you and I, like the hero in our story, need to make amends with somebody who we've become separated from before it's too late? On April the 4th, I'll celebrate my 22nd year as a cancer survivor. 22 times I've gotten the opportunity to have another year to celebrate sunshine, friendship, baseball games. One of these years, I won't get another opportunity. If there's someone in my life from whom I'm estranged, if I'm not seeing the photos on the wall, today would be a great day for me to go to that person and make amends. If you and I aren't seeing those photos in our own lives, today might be a great day for us to take a clean sheet of paper and write at the top, where is my Julie's house? And then for you and I to answer that question as best we can. Change isn't easy. Self-improvement is challenging. But the rewards of improving ourselves and becoming better people last a lifetime. We climbed the hill to Julie's house. Our journey does not end there. Mr. Contest Chair.